Level 1. Bottle. This is MS-13's ground zero, the kid on the corner who sees everything and says nothing. They're called bottles because they stand still like one, quiet, observant, and replaceable. Most are just 13 or 14 years old. They haven't been officially jumped in yet, but they're already being tested for loyalty. This is where the gang starts shaping you.
They join as teenagers or younger.
12 years old. 13.
And quickly become serial killers.
One of the clearest examples is a boy known publicly only as Henry. He grew up in El Salvador with his grandmother after his parents fled to the US. By 12, MS-13 had already pulled him in. His first role was simple: stand on corners, watch traffic, report movement. But MS-13 doesn't let kids stay innocent for long. Within months, an older member put a gun in Henry's hand, placed his own hand over it, and pulled the trigger. Immigration judge Thomas Mulligan later said Henry was forced to kill 2 people before he was even a teenager, and to witness violence that would permanently scar any adult, let alone a child. That same cycle played out in the US. Gerardo Lopez joined MS-13 in Los Angeles in the 1990s at age 14. His mother worked 14-hour shifts at a sweatshop, leaving him alone on the streets.
My mother worked 14-hour days at a sweatshop trying to make ends meet. So I was out in the streets alone a lot. One day, an MS-13 gang member pointed a gun at my face and robbed me.
After being robbed at gunpoint by an MS-13 member, Lopez found himself drawn to the power the gang represented. "I wondered what it would be like to be him," he said, "to be respected in your own neighborhood." That night, he decided to join.
He had respect, power, and pride. Everything that I didn't have. I wondered what it would be like to be him. That night, I made a decision. I was 14 years old, and I was going to join MS-13.
But sometimes just standing watch is enough to ruin your life. In 2016, Daniel Arturo Orellana, then 20, acted as a lookout while other MS-13 members ambushed and murdered 16-year-old Estuar Quiñones in Texas. Orellana watched as the victim was shot more than 15 times. The hit was ordered by a gang leader from jail. For his role, Orellana was sentenced to 20 years, his entire adult life gone for being a bottle. According to U.S. Attorney Don Cochran, who prosecuted MS-13 cases in Tennessee, they're targeting kids, going into schools, and using violence and threats to force young teens to join. We unfortunately seeing a trend where they're perhaps getting even younger. One attempted recruitment involved a 19-year-old high schooler who narrowly escaped kidnapping.
Well, the most recent one who tried to kidnap the high schooler was 19 years old. So we are unfortunately seeing a trend where they're perhaps getting even younger.
Also, former FBI Supervisory Special Agent Jeff Wood explains it plainly. Bottle rank kids patrol territory, sell drugs, watch for police, and protect senior members during missions. They make no money. They send a single emoji when cops approach. They run errands, hold packages without asking questions, and absorb constant risk. One mistake, talking to police, answering a teacher too honestly, and they're marked for death. This is unpaid child labor inside a billion-dollar criminal machine. Level 2. Checo. This is a point of no return. This is the formal initiation, where a recruit is jumped in through a 13-second beating, followed by a blood oath and, often, a murder. FBI Special Agent Jeffrey Wood Jr. described it clearly. Leaders slowly count to 13 while members beat the recruit, then welcome them into La Mara. It's ritualized violence designed to bind you forever.
The initiation into the gang, it always is through a beating. They call it jumping in English, or in Spanish, brincado, which is getting beaten up.
The beating is deliberate. You're expected to stand your ground. No fighting back, no crying, no running. 13 seconds doesn't sound long, but when fists and boots are coming from all directions, it feels endless. One former member said that by count 11, he couldn't see anymore, but quitting wasn't an option. Sometimes the Checo comes after killing. In January 2016, 20-year-old Joel Martinez earned a full membership by murdering 16-year-old Irvin DePaz in Massachusetts. Martinez had minor violations within his clique, missing meetings, drinking too much. To clear them, he was ordered to kill a rival. He did. Then he was beaten for 13 seconds and officially welcomed. He ended up receiving a 40-year federal sentence. Edwin Gonzalez's initiation was even worse. In September 2015, he helped murder 15-year-old Wilson Martinez, luring him to a beach with a fake meetup. The attack left the boy with more than 30 stab and blunt force wounds. Months later, Gonzalez participated in the murder of 16-year-old Christopher de la Cruz, who was stabbed, shot, and beaten. Gonzalez later bragged on tape about the killing. He was officially jumped in on December 6, 2015, and sentenced to life. For girls, Checo can be even darker. Some are offered a choice between the beating or being sexed in, forced assault by multiple members. In multiple documented cases, teenage girls were beaten, trafficked, and treated as property. FBI affidavits show they were discussed like objects, traded between members. Once you're jumped in, there is no exit. As one former member said, the only way out is in a coffin or as a rat, and rats don't last long. The tattoos, the violence, the crimes, they're permanent. Level 3. This is MS-13's ground infantry. This is where you stop being background noise and start being useful. You're no longer just watching corners or holding mystery packages. Now you are the weapon. You're the one who puts in work when the clique needs muscle. Your job is basic but brutal. Move drugs, collect extortion money, and hurt anyone who refuses to comply. This is also where real money starts, about $200 a week. In poor neighborhoods, that feels like power. New shoes, a chain, respect, but the cost is permanent. Miguel Angel Correa Diaz, known as Reaper, ran the sailors' clique on the East Coast. Wiretaps caught him giving murder instructions down to how deep bodies should be buried. That's the soldier's role. Dig the hole, pull the trigger, and don't ask questions.
Sheriff's deputies eventually obtained a warrant and found the victims' remains cut up and in trash bags. The sheriff's office has now charged Oscar Adrian Solis for murder. Sheriff Nakos says Solis is a known gang member with a long and violent criminal history.
One documented case involves a Honduran boy recruited at 11 after an MS-13 member protected him from school bullies. He was promised money, women, respect. At first, older members gave him alcohol and drugs. Then they ordered him to sell heroin and crack. I began witnessing things such as them torturing individuals because they belonged to another gang or had messed up somehow, he told immigration officials. Soon after, he witnessed torture and murder. I was in the same room when they killed someone, he said. When I witnessed that, I realized this is not for me. But by that point, I had already seen and known too much to turn back. His breaking point came when MS-13 ordered him to kill his own friend, the same man who recruited him. He refused, was beaten, and threatened with death. He fled to the US at 16, but the damage followed him. In detention, he admitted he reacted to disrespect with violence. That's what the gang teaches. Soldiers also include girls. Jimena, just 13, was forced to sell drugs to support her family while being threatened by MS-13 members. Age doesn't matter. Gender doesn't matter. If you can move, you can work. She eventually escaped and later worked in government gang intervention, but her story exposes how young soldiers live under constant fear. MS-13 uses a courier system to protect leadership. Packages are dropped, picked up, passed along. When police busted a major sailors' clique operation in 2018, they seized heroin, cocaine, machetes, guns, and ledgers. The adults ran things from prison, while the kids carried the risk.
Earlier this morning, agents seized those drugs, including fentanyl and cocaine, 9 firearms, and nearly $100,000 cash. 23 people are now in custody. 17 of them are accused members of the notorious and violent gang MS-13.
Violence is the other half of the job. Extortion is MS-13's real income. Soldiers smash shops, beat owners, and send the message: pay or die. In 2017, soldiers murdered 15-year-old Angel Soler, burying him under cement after hacking him with a machete, following orders. Also, soldiers are expendable. If you're caught, you sit in juvenile detention alone, no bail and no help. Snitching is a death sentence. Level 4, the Veterano. By the time you reach Veterano status, you're no longer doing the dirty work yourself, you're managing it. Younger soldiers report to you. They kick up money, you take your cut and pass the rest up the chain. You control territory, you decide who sells, who pays, and who gets punished. When someone messes up, you correct it, sometimes with words, sometimes with fists. Sometimes they disappear. You're making around $1,500 a week now. You have a car, an apartment, a girlfriend. From the outside, it almost looks like success, but you're burned. Police know your face. You're flagged as a verified gang member. You can't move cities and start over. MS-13 is everywhere. The rule still stands. The only way out is a coffin or being a rat. And rats don't live long. Alex Sanchez is the most famous American example. He joined MS-13 in middle school in 1980s Los Angeles and rose quickly. He survived shootings, prison, and deportation to El Salvador, where he helped expand MS-13's influence.
I ended up joining what's called the Normandy Locals Clique. Initially, it was all about protection, being there for each other. La mara con machete. Esta de mata viola es solo una manera en cual la pandilla demuestra temor.
Later, he left the gang and founded Homies Unidos, becoming a national anti-gang figure. But in 2009, the FBI arrested him on racketeering charges tied to a murder conspiracy. Supporters were stunned. Was he reformed or still connected? Another was Alejandro Wizard Umaña, the first MS-13 member sentenced to death. A veteran enforcer, he reorganized MS-13 cells in North Carolina, committed multiple murders, and even from jail tried to coordinate hits on witnesses and law enforcement. In 2016, Anthony Gutierrez Meza, a veterano, lured 18-year-old Estevan Abrego Gomez Roman to a park using Facebook Messenger. With permission from higher-ups, he and others beat, stabbed, and hacked the teenager with bats and machetes until his hands were nearly severed. Gutierrez Meza got 22 years. Veteranos don't just kill, they run systems. In El Salvador, MS-13 controls extortion routes, public transportation, and even gas distribution. They run parallel economies, but despite the fear they generate, the money is small. MS-13 isn't a cartel, it's a poverty-driven terror network feeding on its own neighborhoods. By veterano level, most of your friends are dead or serving life. Level 5, the Palabrero. By the time someone reaches Palabrero status, they are MS-13 in their area. Palabrero literally means the one who speaks, and that title is earned through years of violence, loyalty, and survival. This is the boss of a local clique, usually commanding anywhere from 30 to 40 soldiers, sometimes more. Every major decision runs through them. Nothing happens without their word. At this level, you're no longer on the streets selling drugs or collecting extortion personally. You manage people who do that for you. Veteranos report up, hand over money, and receive instructions. You decide who gets promoted, who gets disciplined, and who gets eliminated. If someone violates rules, disrespects leadership, or is suspected of cooperating with police, the Palabrero determines their fate. Sometimes it's a beating, sometimes it's exile, sometimes it's death.
Pero hay que haber matado antes o algo para ser parte de esto.
Fíjese de que voy a omitir esa pregunta, solamente lo voy a dejar a la imaginación.
This is also where the phrase green light truly matters. A green light from a Palabrero is a death sentence. It doesn't require paperwork, explanations, or proof. Once the order is given, soldiers carry it out without question. The Palabrero doesn't need to be present or touch a weapon. Their power lies entirely in speech. Money increases sharply here. A Palabrero can earn between $5,000 and $10,000 a week, depending on territory, extortion routes, and drug flow. On the surface, it looks like success. Nicer clothes, cars, women, and respect. But this level also comes with non-stop paranoia. Law enforcement knows who you are. Rivals want your position. Your own soldiers may be waiting for you to slip. Trust is limited, especially when it comes to girlfriends who are frequently targeted by police as informants. David Sosa Guevara, known as Risky, was a textbook Palabrero. As leader of the Hollywood clique on Long Island, he ordered murders without ever lifting a blade himself. In one of these most infamous cases, he approved the killing of 15-year-old Angel Soler, accused of disloyalty. Soldiers carried out the murder with machetes, mutilated the body, and buried it beneath cement. Sosa Guevara later admitted his clique sent money directly to MS-13 leadership in El Salvador. He received 24 years to life. Another palabrero, Ramon Martinez Cruzito, ordered the killing of an innocent mechanic mistakenly believed to be a rival. He gave the word and his soldiers pulled the trigger. The result was 25 years in prison. At this stage, MS-13 functions like a business. Meetings are held, rules are enforced, money is tracked, but power is fragile. One accusation of weakness or betrayal can lead to leadership in El Salvador approving your execution. And when that happens, it's often your own soldiers who are sent to carry it out. Level 6. The Ranflero. The Ranflero sits at the very top of the street hierarchy. This is no longer about neighborhoods or cliques. This is about cities, regions, and networks. A Ranflero oversees multiple palabreros, sometimes 5 or 6 at a time, each running their own territory. Hundreds of soldiers ultimately move under their authority. At this level, violence is no longer hands-on, it's strategic. Ranfleros don't stand on corners or attend street-level meetings. They operate quietly, often posing as legitimate businessmen. Their focus is logistics, money flow, discipline, expansion, and communication with higher leadership. Beneath them are palabreros. Above them is the Ranfla Nacional, MS-13's top leadership, many of whom operate from maximum security prisons in El Salvador. Orders flow downward, money flows upward. Weekly earnings at this level can range from $20,000 to $50,000, sometimes more. Funds are laundered through car washes, construction companies, motels, restaurants, and nightclubs. On paper, everything looks clean. In reality, every dollar traces back to extortion, drugs, and blood. Meetings are face-to-face only, phones are avoided, language is coded, and paranoia is constant. One of the most powerful Ranfleros in U.S. history was Miguel Angel Correa Diaz, known as Reaper. He controlled MS-13 operations across the U.S. East Coast for years, running the sailors' clique like a corporation. Federal wiretaps captured him discussing murders with disturbing precision, including how deep bodies should be buried, while also tying him to a range of other atrocities, including extortion rings, money laundering operations, witness intimidation, and the distribution of controlled substances. In 2022, he was sentenced to life without parole. Another rare look inside Ranflero operations came from Capricornio, a former leader who cooperated with authorities. He explained how MS-13 invested criminal profits into legitimate businesses and distributed earnings like dividends. His cooperation helped dismantle major networks. In 2022, he was murdered, a reminder that even retired Ranfleros never truly escape. In 2023, U.S. prosecutors indicted 14 top MS-13 leaders worldwide, accusing them of running the gang like a board of directors, coordinating violence across countries.
One of the FBI's most wanted fugitives is in custody this morning. Francisco Javier Roman Bardales was turned over to U.S. authorities in San Diego after being arrested in Mexico. Allegedly a high-ranking leader of the M-13 criminal organization.
One of the most powerful figures still at large is Yulan Archaga Carillas, the alleged MS-13 leader in Honduras, currently on the FBI's 10 most wanted list with a $5 million bounty. At the Ranflero level, you have influence, money, and reach. But you are completely trapped. One betrayal, one wiretap, one flipped associate, and everything collapses. Level 7. The Shot Caller. These are the kings of prison life. The shot caller controls what happens on an entire cell block or sometimes multiple facilities. They decide who gets protection and who gets stabbed. They settle disputes, enforce gang law, and decide whose life is expendable. Bars don't strip their power. In many ways, prison sharpens it. Even locked up shot callers stay connected to the streets. Wives, girlfriends, and trusted visitors carry messages in and out. Orders leave the prison quietly and return as bloodshed. A rival is talking, a call is made. Days later, someone is dead. A rival gang member lands in the same facility. The word goes out, he won't survive the week. The shot caller doesn't need to touch a weapon. Their voice is enough.
Estos sujetos eran los sicarios, los que se encargaban de ejecutar las órdenes que les daban los líderes de esas estructuras.
Omar Vasquez, known as Duke, is one of the clearest examples. Sent from El Salvador to the U.S. specifically to organize MS-13, Vasquez became the top coordinator for cliques in Maryland, Washington, D.C., and Northern Virginia. From 2001 to 2006, Vasquez directed a wave of violence that included at least 6 murders across 2 states. Witnesses testify that he was the overall decision maker, approving hits and assigning roles. In 2005, 2 MS-13 members opened fire on a group of teenagers in Fairfax, Virginia, killing 1 and wounding 2 others. Vasquez ordered it. In 2007, he was sentenced to life in federal prison. His empire shrank to a cell, but his authority didn't disappear overnight. In Los Angeles, Jose Balmore Romero, known as Porky, played an even more dangerous role. Prosecutors identified him as the overall shot caller for MS-13 in LA between 2013 and 2014. Balmore didn't just manage MS-13, he managed MS-13's relationship with the Mexican mafia. Money collected from drug sales and extortion on the streets was funneled upward as tax to la M in exchange for protection inside jails and prisons. Fail to pay, and a green light is issued. That means any inmate affiliated with the Mexican mafia can kill you on sight. Balmore was charged with racketeering, drug trafficking, and ordering murders, all from a leadership position that rarely required him to leave custody. Then there's Abner Zelaya, leader of the Teclas Locos Salvatruchos clique. Zelaya murdered a rival in 2003 and was sent to prison, but incarceration only elevated his status. From behind bars, he wrote letters directing his clique's operations, encouraging violence, advising on leadership succession, and coordinating communication with MS-13 figures in El Salvador. In one letter, he even reassured a member that a victim hadn't identified him yet. Zelaya wasn't serving time, he was running a business. The most chilling case came out of Texas. In 2016, Omar Torres was sitting in Harris County Jail when he ordered the murder of 16-year-old Estuar Quiñones. MS-13 members lured the boy to a park and shot him more than 15 times as he sat on a bench. Torres never left his cell. His command was absolute. Level 8, the international leader. At the very top are the founders, the ghosts. These are the men who built MS-13, survived deportation, prison, and decades of war, and still command loyalty across borders. They don't stand on corners, they don't show their faces. They sit in maximum security prisons in El Salvador, places like Zacatecoluca and now Sikot, and rule through intermediaries. Their word travels from a prison cell in Central America to the streets of Los Angeles, New York, and Virginia, and it is obeyed without question. In 2002, these imprisoned leaders formed the Ranfla Nacional, a governing body often called the 12 Apostles of the Devil. This was MS-13's transformation from a street gang into a transnational criminal organization. From prison, they coordinated murders, extortion, weapons purchases, and international alliances. In August 2023, the U.S. Department of Justice charged 14 of these leaders with terrorism-related offenses, accusing them of running a global command and control structure from behind bars. One of the most powerful figures is Elmer Canales Rivera, known as Crook de Hollywood. A founding member from Los Angeles, Canales helped establish MS-13 in the 1980s and later became part of the Ranfla Historica, the original leadership circle. From Zacatecoluca prison, he directed operations across multiple countries. In 2015, the U.S. Treasury sanctioned him, freezing assets tied to his name. Then, in a stunning scandal, he was illegally released from prison in 2021 as part of secret negotiations between MS-13 leaders and the Bukele administration. He fled to Mexico, lived in hiding for 2 years, and was finally captured and extradited to the United States in 2023. He now faces terrorism charges in federal court. Another founding leader is Cesar Humberto Lopez Larios, known as El Grañas de Stoners. Lopez Larios helped build MS-13's first cliques in El Salvador after deportations in the 1990s. He spent years coordinating murders, extortion, and attacks on police. Captured in Mexico in 2024, he was deported to El Salvador in 2025 and sent straight to CICOT, the mega prison designed to bury gang leadership alive.
Hundreds of inmates, barefoot and stripped down to white shorts, scurry into El Salvador's new mega prison, ordered to crouch down on the ground one after another.
U.S. prosecutors say he helped orchestrate the murder of police officers and negotiated with governments for prison privileges in exchange for reduced violence. Borromeo Enrique Henriquez, Diablito de Hollywood, is another key member of the Ranfla Nacional. Prosecutors called him one of the gang's most important figures, helping direct violence and enforce discipline across borders. Most of the Ranfla leaders are imprisoned. Some remain at large. All are still dangerous. These international leaders ordered mass violence campaigns, including the 2016 wave of killings in El Salvador and the U.S. They raised hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy military-grade weapons. Most shocking of all, they allegedly issued a green light to assassinate an FBI agent in El Salvador, ordering the killing of federal law enforcement from a prison cell. This is the final level of MS-13, men who turned refugee teenagers into an international terror network and proved that even prison walls can't contain real power.